The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WDCNaradio.com.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Wednesday, the 23rd of October. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Corey Tackman, our guy Zeke in the middle joining us today because we have a lot to talk about. Opening round of high school football playoffs. And before we get going, I know I had a game last night. Tyler did a game. We're going to break those down in just 1 second. But Zeke, you did some PA announcing last night at Detroit Lakes and had a bit of an interesting night.
I did. It was a wet, rainy, nasty 7 o'clock start because you started at 6 o'clock in your game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you beat the wet, gross stuff that came in. Yeah, it was 4 seed Detroit Lakes, 5 seed Little Falls. A game that was a walk-off touchdown for Detroit Lakes 2 weeks ago in Little Falls. Flyers come to town here smelling upset, and that's exactly what happened. It was a pretty close game. Little Falls took the lead with about 2 minutes left. Lakers couldn't get the first down. Flyers right off the clock, and now they have the pleasure of taking on the number one seed, the number one team in Class 4A is the Becker Bulldogs, which will be a bloodbath because Becker's going to take state this year in 4A, I think.
Have they been good at football traditionally?
A little bit here and there, I think.
I think they've maybe had a team or two that's been kind of nice.
Yeah, well, it's a 5-team section in 8-4A. It's Becker, who's the number one team in the state. You've got Ricori, and James Herberg has those guys playing great every year. They got a gopher coming on the O-line. Princeton Tigers are nothing to balk at. They're the 2 seed. Detroit Lakes is usually really, really good up there, the top 10 in the state. And then it's Little Falls is the 5 seed. And I think for the first time since it moved to a 5-team section, Little Falls is playing into the second round of the playoffs. So it was a fun game last night, other than the weather and the rain and that kind of garbage.
You had a scoreboard snafu?
Yeah, and the scoreboard disconnected with 2 minutes left. And so as the PA guy, you're trying to relay to the officials what's going on, and I was looking for the athletic director to come up and fix stuff. You're
just like waving your arms like panicked.
Exactly, yeah. But I got to come home and kind of half pay attention to the Wolves last night too, which is
half paying attention is about all that you probably needed to do before you realized I'm going to go to bed.
Yep. I waited to see Bronny and LeBron play. I saw it, and then I went to bed.
All right. Corey, I know you were taking in some high school football last night. You were kind of peeking around central Minnesota. Anything stand out to you from last night?
No, I spent a lot of time just checking in on the games that we had on the air and seeing how those were going, not only just from our perspective, but also to pop them on the Huddle app on the TV to see if they looked as ugly on screen as it sounded like they potentially were in person. Parker's Prairie beat Ashby Brandon Evansville 62-6. There's really just not much else to say about that. Parker's Prairie is a very good team, and really the biggest takeaway now is they get their rematch with Breckenridge on Saturday at Breckenridge. Breckenridge beat Lake Park Audubon 36-14. So this is we're talking about, when we talked about it yesterday, CJ, any of the top 5 teams, it felt like in 6A football, could win that section. And that's proving to be true because the 5 seed New York Mills beat Walker Hackensack Akeley 28-6. And then the top seeded West Central area beat Pioneer Bacchus. So it's a 1-5 West Central and Mills and a 2-3 Breckenridge and Parker's Prairie on Saturday in the semifinals. This is a deep, deep section. And that Breckenridge Parker's Prairie game is going to be, what was the term you used? A bloodbath. This is going to be like an old school. It was a 14-12 game when they played back in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I mean, that's going to be one of the best football games in the state on Saturday, I think.
It's going to be a fun one. And I've been kind of looking across central Minnesota. I've been looking at some of the things yesterday. No, huge upsets for a lot of the area. If you want to count, again, 4 or 5 matchups are tough because they are technically upsets, but they're, the most likely game to have an upset. Obviously, you talk about New York Mills beating Walker Hackensack Akeley. I believe Frazee over Park Rapids area, that was a 4-5 game as well. It's opening round of football, and there's almost really no huge upsets because the good teams are the good teams, and the teams that struggle for youth or inexperience or whatever reason they're going to struggle, especially when pitted up against the best team in your section. Now, like you talked about, Corey, things get a little bit more interesting on Saturday. We're going to keep you updated with the broadcast schedule. Just check that out at WDenaRadio.com. Or guys, you could follow the new Sports Cow page on Facebook.
Moo.
I've mentioned before, there's that episode of South Park where they build this giant wooden cow for cow days, and then all the cows like form a religion around it. But every hour on the hour, it just goes moo,
moo,
and then all the cows just slowly kind of congregate and form a herd. Anyway, that's every time somebody says moo with Sports Cow, I just think of that episode. Anyway, but we had some football on the air last night, like Corey mentioned. Obviously, Ashby, Brandon, Evansville, and Parker's Prairie. Ashby, Brandon, Evansville played a 9-man schedule all season long. That's just such a tough ask to tell them, all right, you have one practice, play 11-man now against a good Parker's Prairie team. That just is what it is. Parker's Prairie's a good football team. Their second half was weird. They're on the right track. That game is going to be fun, like you mentioned, Corey. I had Sebeka at Verndale, and I mentioned this last week, and I mentioned this a little bit in the broadcast. Bertha Hewitt, Sebeka, and Verndale all finished at 4-4. They all kind of had tiebreakers that canceled each other out. And when you looked at, points scored, points for, all this stuff, it was decided that Verndale got the 4, Sebeka got the 5, Bertha Hewitt got the 6. And I think they got it right because Verndale, they had a good game. They played a very nice game last night against Sebeka. Bertha Hewitt played tough against Ogilvie in the first half. The Ogilvie kind of ran away with it in the second half and got a couple scores. Bertha Hewitt wasn't able to match up with that one. So I think overall, Verndale getting that home game, as the higher ranked team, that proved to be correct. Verndale gets a big win, an offense that, a couple scores got away, but I think overall it still should be said that Verndale played a very nice game, and they got a big win last night against the Sebeka Trojans by a score of 44-20. Just a lot of running around by Verndale. They passed a lot against Nevis. I thought they had a really good passing attack. I was excited to see if they would go back to that. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's Verndale. And what do they do really well is run right over top of you. And that's exactly what they did against Sebeka. And I thought they had a really good game plan overall. And they were able to come out with a win in that one. Sean Schmitz played a heck of a game, but I think those who follow the Verndale football program know he's capable of doing that every week. Overall, Schmitz had 77 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and a kick return touchdown. So just that'll play. I think Hollister Hines had 96 rushing yards rather, and a couple touchdowns. Sebeka played a really good game. Max Lake had 41 rushing yards. Travis Preston had 101 yards on the ground with a 55-yard rushing touchdown in the fourth quarter. But this is a game where Sebeka had their opportunities, and just a little things kind of added up against them. Sebeka had a couple of drives that got to the red zone or got on the doorstep, and they turned the ball over on downs, one at the 1-yard line. It was a 4th and goal, like the 7, and they throw it, and the momentum brings the receiver out of the end zone, and because it's slippery, he just couldn't plant and fall backwards, and instead turned it over on downs because he went out of bounds at the 1. And Verndale was able to, they completed, I think, all but 2 of their 2-point conversions, and those were kind of later in the day. So they got their 2-point conversions, and when they got in the red zone, they got into the end zone. And it's just a couple things that separated Sebeka from Verndale, but overall a good season for the Trojans. I know they had the most players in their football program that they've had since returning to Sebeka football. So, I mean, they're in a good spot. They feel like they're in a good spot as they keep building. Verndale rolls on. They're going to get a matchup with Nevis, and that's a team that I think if you followed kind of this little rivalry over the last couple of years, I know Nevis has gotten the advantage of Verndale every time they've played over the last few years, but Verndale would love nothing more than to go in the defending state champions home in that semifinal game and knock them off. And they played a really good first half against the Tigers that last time out, just a week ago, 7 days from today. So it should be a good one. So all of this to say, football.
Moo. Oh, wait. No. Yeah. Football.
Football. I've been doing some reading on that Frazee Park Rapids game, because that was one that I kind of had my eye on too, where a couple weeks ago, Park Rapids took a 57 spot on Frazee, and then these two teams meet together in the playoffs. Looks like it was a 21-20 victory for Frazee. Looks like Park Rapids scored to cut the deficit to 22-21, recovered the onside kick, got the ball down to the 3-yard line, and then fumbled it, and Frazee recovered. And that's how that game ended. So it was, it's playoff football time, baby.
Wowzers. That's awesome. What a game that was.
Yeah.
That would have been a fun one.
I've got Verndale Sebeka on the air tonight.
Oh, all right.
Rematch? Football rematch?
Yeah, football rematch. If there is a football rematch tonight, there's going to be arrests made because they'll be in the stands fighting.
They're going to be playing on the stage in that Sebeka gym while the volleyball game is going on. I think that's how that's going to work.
Section 5A volleyball on the Superstation K106 tonight. Sebeka Trojans and the Verndale Pirates in Sebeka. Sebeka is the number 1 seed in their half of the subsection. Verndale, an 8 seed, beat Castlake Bena 3-0 on Monday night to get to this point in the tournament. These two teams played 20 days ago. Sebeka won it. Sebeka second place in the PRC this year. Their one conference loss was to Wadena Deer Creek. That was early. That was first half of September when those two teams played. I know very recently the Lilquists have gone over some milestones in their career, in their high school careers, both Miranda and Jalen, who are cousins. So they've got some standouts over there. Verndale finished last in the PRC. They did not get a conference win. Again, it was a 3-0 match when they played 20 days ago. But that's got a 6:45 pregame with a 7 o'clock first serve tonight. Superstation K106. That's 105.9 FM on your radio dial and WDenaRadio.com.
All right. And over on KWAD 101.7 FM, AM 920, the Wadena Deer Creek Wolverines begin their title defense of Section 8AA when they host the Crookston Pirates. Corey, I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm in the process of pulling up the score for the Minnesota scores page for both these teams. I'm going to let you in on something, and I think we can do this. I think we're good because Crookston is not in our listening area. Wadena Deer Creek should win this one pretty easily. This should be one where they take care of business. They're the 3 seed. Crookston is not. Last year, these two teams played. Wadena Deer Creek took care of business. I don't expect much to change. The Wolverines had a little bit of a mid-season funk, but of course, as we all know, they figured some things out at the end of the season and they got rolling in where they needed to get rolling. They figured out what rotations worked for them and who was backing up who and how these things work. Crookston is 0-18 on the season. They're 0-5 in the section. Wadena Deer Creek is 19-9. And over the weekend, the MEA weekend, they played on Friday and Saturday in Moorhead, and they got wins over Duluth East, Spring Lake Park, and Dilworth Glendon Felton, I might add. They lost to Wilmer, but I mean, it's volleyball, so that kind of just happens. But I think this is a team that feels like they got some momentum heading into the postseason, and they're going to be a contender to defend for that Section 8AA title. But it begins tonight on a 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock first serve on 101.7 FM and AM 920 KWAD, online at WDenaRadio.com/KWAD. It's going to be a good one for Wolverine fans.
CJ, just to put it into perspective a little bit, Wadena Deer Creek is ranked 13th in the state in Class 2A with their QRF. They're third in their own section, so that lets you know just kind of how top heavy the 8AA is, and how good those, especially top
Felton and Holly, are nice teams.
Crookston is last in 2A according to the QRF. They're 125th. So, to your point, these are important games. This does not to take away, obviously, as we know, the importance of these sorts of games. And every single coach, we've all talked to coaches in this situation. These are the games where they're like, we actually get to find what we're made of in a game, because everyone can get up for the big match. Everyone at Wadena Deer Creek on that roster can get up when it comes time to play Perham or Park Rapids or Holly or DGF. Obviously, can you go out and get this match over with in an hour?
Can you do the things you need to do? What are the things that it's like, hey, no matter what the score is, I want to make sure we're working on X. If you're Sue,
or not even that, we need to go there and kick ass.
Let's just get in and get out. Nobody get hurt. We're moving on to the next game.
Yeah, let's just like not just show up. Let's just go ahead.
Formality. Let's make this this should be a formality. Let's make it a formality, and that's what Wadena Deer Creek has to do tonight. Easier said than done, but they're a good team. They did it last year. I'm expecting them to do it again.
They were a seed last year when they came through the section.
Right, exactly. So these two teams were seeded the exact same way, and I want to go back to a season ago because. Yeah, again, it was a similar situation because obviously they were seeded the exact same way. Wolverines were the 3 seed in that section, so they didn't have to, they didn't get a first round bye like the top 2 teams did back a year ago. But if you look at the Section 8 AA standings from the 2023 season, Crookston at that time was 2-21 and 0-7 in the section. So I don't mean to pick on them because it's a high school team and there's 15-year-olds on there. They're trying their best, but Wadena, Deer Creek, and Crookston's programs are just in much different spots. So that's what needs to be said. Again, we'll have coverage of Sebeka, Verndale, Wadena, Deer Creek, other teams across central Minnesota. Today, I know Bertha Hewitt plays LaPorte. Browerville Eagle Valley plays tonight. Who they play escapes me. There's other games going on. Staples Motley plays Holdingford. There's stuff going on across central Minnesota, some of these other volleyball matches, and we'll keep you updated on them. By the way, we do have brackets and matchups for the first round on our website, WDenaRadio.com, if you want to get the full breakdown there. Zeke, volleyball, anything to add?
Nope.
Volleyball.
You guys moo. Yeah, you guys did a great job covering volleyball. Volleyball, what needs to be said. All right, Zeke, you're a hockey guy. Wild, are they winning the cup this year? What's been going on? We talked all summer long, at least I did, about how the Wild they don't excite me. Like, what's there to get excited about with this team? Not that they're bad, but they're just not, what can they do? Pretty nice start to the season so far. Defying all of my expectations, that's for sure, because there's still 1 season, maybe 2 seasons left of that Zach Parisi, Ryan Suter salary cap crunch, and so you're working with
track those things.
You're bringing in Jake Middleton to a multi-year deal and things like that. And he's played pretty well on that defensive side. You've had some injuries. I mean, Jules-Eric Sinek busted his beak up pretty good a couple of weeks ago. Had to have surgery on his nose. I think it was the game against Winnipeg, maybe just black eyes, and he doesn't look like Jules-Eric Sinek. It's awesome, but he took a stick to the face. You have Jared Spurgeon out again with a lower body injury. The captain just can't stay healthy. Johansson missed some time early, and Gustafson. I mean, Philip Gustafson, who's a big trade target kind of in the offseason because you had Marc-Andre Fleury coming back for 1 year. You've got Jesper Wallstad waiting in the wings. He's going to be the next goaltender of the future. And with the cap pinch, maybe you ship off Gusty and see what you do there. But he's been just phenomenal. Like one of the best goaltenders through the first 6 games. Wilder 4-0-2. They haven't trailed in any game in regulation this year so far. The second longest active streak in NHL history. Their 2 losses came in overtime. I think Winnipeg beat them in overtime, and Seattle beat them in overtime. Were the 2 that they got. Or Seattle was a shootout, and Winnipeg was an overtime loss, and so they're playing awesome. And last year, last night you beat the defending Stanley Cup champs 5-1. You get 5 goals from 5 different guys. Eriksson scores, Bazzucarello scores, Johansson scores, Boldy scores, and I forget who the other one was, but just playing at a record pace here. And you have to start thinking, no, I have been hurt recently by a Minnesota sports team, and I'm still not over that. And I will never get over Game 5 of the WNBA Finals in 2024. But you need to start looking ahead and saying, okay, I mean, the Avalanche are awful in the Western Conference this year. The Edmonton Oilers have not lived up to expectations as the defending Western Conference champions. And so now you have to wonder, how far can this Wild team go? The key to it, though, is staying healthy, because there's not a lot of depth on this team. And if you lose an Eriksson for an extended period of time, I think he missed 1 game after he got his nose busted. If you lose Gustafson for an extended amount of period of time, how long is Spurgeon going to be out? You know, the big thing for the Wild is to stay healthy. And if they can do that, man, watch out, because they've been good the first 6 games.
There's so many games too, right? Like, I mean, we've talked about it with the Twins a million times over. Like, to start a season like this just allows you an opportunity to have a guy miss 2 weeks and where you have to just stumble your way through it and hope you survive kind of a situation, just to be able to start when the Twins start the season 0-11 and your summer's over, not even 2 weeks, it's done. But a more immediate comparison is the Vikings, right? The Vikings start out 5-0. You're just so far ahead of the 8-ball to start this way. And yeah, it's a long season, but they put themselves in a really nice spot. Thank goodness.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the Wild last year. They had that really slow start that got Dean Evison fired, and so this is kind of the opposite of that, where John Hines is like, we're not doing that again this year. They get after the hot start, and then maybe that'll be enough to push them over the edge to maybe eventually sneak in for that 8th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. Who knows?
Back in,
back into the playoffs, Minnesota Wild style.
At least we got in.
At least we're in. We got that mid-round draft pick. We're not going to get any better. We're not going to get any worse. We'll keep coasting at 500 hockey and say we made the playoffs every freaking year.
The Wild are in salary cap heck, but at least those Prairie and Suter contracts led to a championship. Anyway, let's talk to a team that also has some championship aspirations in the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Zeke, I know you sent me this graphic. I'm going to assume it's true that the Lakers missed a lot of shots last night, like an incredible amount of shots. I don't know if this is hyperbole or not. It feels like, because I watched the game, it feels like it could be. Most missed shots in NBA history in a regular season game. And that was a picture of LeBron shooting the ball with like ice just all over his hands. I love it. Everything about that graphic. And which I responded, well, surely the Wolves must have won that game if the Lakers just missed a ton of shots. No,
I've got an interesting stat line here. Bronny James, of course, was the topic of the thing last night. 3 minutes in his debut, 0 points, 1 rebound, 0 for 2 shooting, -5 on the floor. When he checked into the game with his dad, it was 51-35 Los Angeles with 4 minutes left. When he left, it was 53-42 with 1 minute and 15 left. And so it was.
He doesn't need the G League. He doesn't.
I mean, we knew that for the home opener with Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. in the crowd last night, Braun and Bronny were going to play together. It was just a matter of when. And I figured when the Wolves are up 30 points, they'll sneak Bronny in because how often does your 13th guy on the bench get into the game, right? He got in with 4 minutes left in the second quarter with the Lakers, up 15, 16 points. And when he left, that
it's a really good job by Redick, actually. Like, this is the chance. He was self-aware enough to be like that, because the game ended up the final score ended up closer, but he was like, I have to do it. This has to be the time.
The Lakers constantly had like a 10-point lead all game, it felt like. So and in the NBA, that's nothing. So yeah, when it was like a 15-point game in the second quarter, it's like, get him in now, because if things get a little out of hand, we can recover from them pretty quickly.
And now they play, we can send them to the G League and Lakers can go about their business.
Yeah. Right, exactly. It was cool. I don't know. I'm with you guys. I'm a little like he's probably not good enough yet to be an NBA player and probably should be in the G League. Fine, whatever. That's a different conversation. It was pretty cool. It was. I thought that it was. I mean, for crying out loud, I get giddy when I get to take my 6-year-old son to the golf course with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
This guy gets to play professional basketball with his son. CJ, imagine you lacing up the cleats for the Clarissa Flyers and your boys with you and you're going to play like, that's a really cool moment.
Yeah. Check with me in like 15 years. That dream's not dead. We'll keep it rolling. That's going to be like that old man hobbling through the dugout there, wondering if I'm going to pass out mid-game from the heat.
What I'm saying.
Every team needs one of those, though.
It's really cool. I thought it was a really cool moment. I'm glad they got to have it for them, and I hate that they won.
Have you guys seen the LeBron James commercial where he's pouring the Fruity Pebbles in Bronny's car?
Yes.
And I'm like, why is Bronny still living at home? He's an NBA player. He should have his own apartment or something at this point. Why is he still crashing with his dad?
LA rent is pretty expensive.
That's true, but he signed a huge contract for the 55th overall pick. Yeah. Guaranteed money. He should not be living with mom and dad anymore.
Come through too. I'm sure that's also a thing.
Yeah.
So, rent's expensive, and you know what? Like, it's you're living with your parents, but that house is so big. How much do you actually run into them?
Yeah, he moved out to the guest house by the pool.
Yeah, right. There was they showed a mic'd up moment, and most of those times I just think those are a giant waste of content. Like, spend
mic'd up moments you actually can't put on TV.
Yeah, embellish it. If they follow you, embellish it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Whoops, they'll never do that again. By the way, it was a moment of like LeBron comes out of the game. Maybe it's warm-ups, whatever. Like, hey, play fast. You see how physical it is. But play free, play fun, like all of those things. And it was a very cool, like father-son moment, right? All of those things that LeBron's been saying to his kid for years and his boys about playing basketball. I'm sure they've had that conversation 100 times. I also, though, imagined him doing that to a rookie Austin Reeves a few years ago. And there's just no way, no way he's ever been like, trying to not make a big deal out of it's his son playing, and there's cameras everywhere, and it's in LA, and everyone understands how big of a deal this is, and him being like, hey man, you see how physical it is, just play fast, play loose, you'll be fine.
one mistake for each bench.
Yeah, it was really endearing, and it was all of the things that you would expect out of a father-son moment. And then also the professional, like LeBron is a notorious teammate killer. Like, get this guy. He's been trying to trade D'Angelo for 6 seasons already. He's never had that moment with D'Angelo even once.
Right. LeBron is that moment was well thought out. Let me put it to you this way. LeBron is not, he knew everything for what he was saying to what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing all night long. Now, whether it's he understands the significance of the moment, if you want to get cynical with it, that is what it is. But yeah, no, that moment last night can kind of live in its own, and they're going to talk about it anyways. And you know what? Good on the Wolves for just letting the Lakers win and just having their moment. Because when they get the 6th seed and get rolled by the Nuggets in round 1, they're not going to remember that night.
Yeah, the Wolves had their moment. They announced the Rudy Gobert extension like right at tip off, and they're like, okay, that's all we need. Lakers. Yep.
And the Lori Rodriguez news that Shams was putting on the McAfee show,
right? Yeah.
That like Lori and Rodriguez are ready to go. They have the money set. If the court says pay Glenn Taylor, we're like, here you go, Glenn Taylor. But that all being said, the Wolves lost, and it's a typical way when the Wolves lose to the LA Lakers over the last 6 years. What's typically been the reason is Anthony Davis just bullies them. And Anthony Davis bullied the Timberwolves last night. That's really all there needs to be said about that game. They got killed on the boards. And they look like a team that threw in DiVincenzo and Randall. This looks like a team that made a major move on their team like a month ago. So they're still working things out and doing things. And we've talked about it before. And that was when they traded for Gobert in June of that year. Give it till Christmas before we really can critically start to get some things going. DiVincenzo and Randall, they didn't quite look comfortable yet. They looked a little timid early on, and then maybe a little not so timid later on in the game. And it's clunky, but even if last year's team would have lost this first game of the season, you're going to lose to a team like the Lakers in LA a couple times throughout the season. The Wolves lost to the Raptors to start last season, and they went to the Western Conference Finals. So I'm not gonna make too much of this game.
It's arguably already too much thought. It's the first game.
Right.
Yep. I'm going to pose this question though. Lakers scored 72 points in the paint last night. If Cat was on this team, over or under 72 in the paint, does he make a difference on the boards last night?
I mean, it's just impossible to say that he would be worse. So I'd have to say that he'd give less.
He's playing in the same spot on the floor as Randall. He probably can't do worse, but what's better?
Yeah.
68. What's
that? I saw somebody on Twitter, because Julius Randle's one of those guys who it's like Karl Anthony Towns. It's easy to get a bunch of people to just say things about him on social media. Somebody's like, I'm 5 minutes into the Julius Randle experience and I already am reaching for the tequila. So we'll see how that goes. All right, guys, let's wrap up the show here. And I want to wrap it up by talking about something that's, I think, pretty important. So yesterday we talked, me and Corey did, about the iconic, the best, the, number one thing that we all want to talk about, the thing that's kind of caught I don't think it's caught the national media landscape. I think it's kind of gotten buried with the season starting for the NBA, and just in the middle of football and trade deadline and stuff like that. But I mean, they did it. The Mad Men did it. They recreated the Anthony Edwards
That's beautiful.
and Justin Jefferson picture. They recreated the Moss Garnett picture with Ant and Jefferson. It looks great. We talked about all these things. I'm assuming you have the same sentiment, Zeke, that it's just a 10 out of 10 chef's kiss, no notes.
Minnesota sports fans needed this week because I don't know if I've said this already, but I will never get over Game 5 of the 2024 WNBA Finals, and this is exactly what lifted my spirits up. And not just this, but my TikTok algorithm has been full of like the behind the scenes stuff, where Ant says if I win a ring in the next 3 years, I'm going to go over to football. And that he would love a chance to tackle Derrick Henry. He says, if I started lifting weights, I'd be just as big as he is, which I love about Ant. The confidence is there. He did an interview right when he came in the league. He's like, whatever you need, I'll compete with you. If it's swimming, if it's croquet, if it's golf, put me in and I'm going to do it. And just getting the behind the scenes look at these two guys interacting has just been awesome. And the photo just crescendos that a million times.
It's funny. There's a couple different versions of these photos. So this is just one of them, but there's one that's kind of been the main focus. And it's been like, it was basically where like Justin Jefferson's kind of getting silly with it and whatever. He's got the basketball. And then Anthony Edwards is just like, where he's like, oh yeah, I could totally play football if I wanted to. Like Jefferson's like, how cool is this? Like I got a basketball. I got an NBA jersey on. I could hoop a little bit, and just kind of see what happens. And Anthony Edwards is like, oh, I'd be an MVP in the NFL for sure. If you just got me on the team and thing, I'd be running the league. I'd be doing whatever. It's funny. So we flipped the question now. What's the silliest combination of this picture that you guys could think of? What's the silliest thing? I'm going to start out with my silly version, and then we'll kind of go on from there. So guys, look at this in all of its glory. I got Delman Young and Troy Williamson on this duo. Name a better one. I'll wait.
I would argue this is a really good time because I had a separate category beyond silly. I had a who would be the saddest Minnesota athletes you could put in this moment.
Oh, don't do this to me.
And Troy Williamson is the football player, period.
Always.
You switch sports. You went from basketball to baseball. I kept it in basketball. I think Troy Williamson and Rashad McCants is the saddest combination of this.
Williamson and Johnny Flynn.
Yeah. Johnny Flynn can also be another, but Johnny Flynn actually played it. Johnny Flynn is sad because of the Steph Curry undertones. Rashad McCants ruined the NBA for me. I wish I was telling you hyperbolically that was true. I literally stopped watching it because I could not watch that guy anymore. So I see, CJ, if you're crossing sports like this, gonna cross the streams and pull up baseball, I don't know. Delman Young's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I brought up Delman Young because that's the one in my life that's like turns you into baseball joker. Delman Young was that for me, and I'm assuming Zeke, it's the same for you.
Yeah, I went. I had a tie between two. I went deep into my bag. For one of them, I had Mistrail Raymond. Remember that guy? Defensive back. No, defensive back. No.
It's one of those.
Burger King had a promotion like 10 years ago, and they put Mistrail Raymond on all of their stuff, and he was awful. He was so bad. I went Mistrail Raymond and Robbie Hummel is one of my combos. Yeah, because Robbie Hummel, he was supposed to be the next big thing and just couldn't stay healthy. Falls to the Wolves, and
didn't Robbie Hummel have bad hips and knees and
yeah.
Yeah,
and that's why the Wolves drafted him in the second round. Yeah.
All 6 of those joints were bad, I think.
But he was
never a bad
so
idea
good.
to take the white guy from Purdue.
He was so good at Purdue. I mean, what Zach Edey is doing, that should have been Robbie Hummel.
Yeah, and it didn't help that Hummel was a part of the all-Caucasian team that the Timberwolves ran out about 12 years.
The Wonder Bread Wolves?
That's it, yeah.
Hey, that team had an Olympian on it in a totally different sport, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, volleyball. Chase Budinger, baby.
Oh, yeah. Well, Kevin Love at least made the Olympic team.
Kevin Love's awesome.
Yeah. How about anybody else on that team?
Pekovic, the water buffalo? There's no way that guy hasn't been assigned as a hitman somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Alexi Shved was there maybe? Andrei Kirilenko. Yeah, it was just
some of those guys are like deep seated, like in Ukraine right now, and we have
Riddenauer.
Luke Riddenauer. I loved me some Luke Riddenauer. Yeah. My other sad one. I went Matt LeCroy. We call him LeCroy in our house. Matt LeCroy and Devin Setaguchi for the Wild was my other.
That's awesome.
Kind of sad one. Traded Brett Burns for Devin Setaguchi as part of that deal, and he just was not
it.
He was not it.
I have one Matt LeCroy story. We call him LeCroy at our house too. Is that not how you say it?
I don't know. I thought it was LeCroy. LeCroy. I don't know.
Like the drink.
Like the drink.
My favorite. I'll let Corey tell a story and then I'll say.
When I was in high school, I sang. We put a barbershop quartet together, and we sang the national anthem at a Twins game. And they walked us out of the tunnel of the Metrodome, and we walked right by Matthew LeCroy, who was bigger in person than you would expect. That's my Matthew LeCroy adjacent story. Not fat. He was as fat as you thought he was in real life. He was taller. He was, if you saw him in real life, on TV, it looked like a guy who plays slow pitch softball on Tuesdays. When you saw him in real life, you're like, oh, I get why he's a professional athlete.
Yeah.
He just was like a bigger, more impressive human being in person than it really surprised me.
LeCroy is making his slow transition into Ron Gardenhire. If you've seen pictures,
yes,
yeah, more and more like his hair is white. He's got the Ron Gardenhire facial hair. And he did some coaching, I think, last for the Washington Nationals, and he just looks like a carbon copy of Ron Gardenhire. So that's hilarious. Corey, let's wrap things up.
I had this. I need to show this to you guys.
Is that a LeCroy autograph?
Absolutely, it is.
Oh,
LeCroy autograph ball. The only piece of game used memorabilia I have is a game used Matt LeCroy bat. Louisville Slugger. His name's on there.
Amazing.
It's my favorite.
I have one more Matthew LeCroy story because this made me laugh. You know, after you'd leave the Metrodome and people would line up to get autographs as the players were leaving, like where they would drive out. We were not staying for autographs, but we had to walk by that zone where the players would leave the stadium to get to our vehicle. And I remember specifically Luis Rivas leaving the parking lot, and he had this beautiful Mercedes-Benz coupe. I mean, it's just like it was everything you imagined a professional athlete and that vehicle that they would drive. And we're talking about the early 2000s here, right? When this is happening.
Can I guess what he drove quick?
Yes, please guess the vehicle Matthew LeCroy drove out in.
I'm going to say it was a red early 1990s Ford Ranger.
That is very close. I don't know what year it would have been, but I assume, let's say it was 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. I assume it was a brand new or as close to new 2004 silver Ford F-150.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was like a Lariat trim, right? But it was just funny to watch Christian Guzman leave in whatever sick car he had, and then Luis Rivas go by in whatever sick car he had, and like Torrey Hunter driving out in a G-Wagon or something like that, and then Matthew LeCroy is just like, hey, y'all.
It's like the Kirk conversion van that he drove forever. He may still drive it. I don't know. He got it pimped out when he went to Atlanta. Who knows?
He got
put some rims on it.
Yeah, he's got it rides a little lower now. All right, Corey, who do you got on your picture?
I thought the silliest one for me would be two overweight white guys for their respective teams, and that's Harrison Phillips and Joe Ingles.
Ooh.
I found the perfect shot of Harrison Phillips, by the way. It just fits so much onto the Jefferson's head.
I just the thing that made I would like to see them in the others' respective jerseys. It just would be funny to me.
Better yet, I would like to see if you got like a Harrison Phillips and then you get like a JJ Barea and you just had them wear each other's like actual jerseys.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah,
and so JJ Barea's like got on a poncho and Harrison Phillips looks like he's in a wet t-shirt contest.
That guy in a little coat.
Pretty much, yeah. It'd be fat guy in a little coat.
Yeah. Love it.
All right, guys. We need to do sessions like this more often where we can make fun of stuff like that. So they need to do this picture. They need to do some of these pictures more often.
I need a fanfare. I need like a Nas Reed, Aaron Jones, or a Nas Reed, CJ Ham picture, just as a fan favorite.
Well, we bullied him into doing the JJ and that one. It only took 20 years to do it. So Let's start on the next one.
It's going to take 2 decades to get 2 all-world players again, so let's have some in between.
The Kaprizov Royce Lewis picture is going to slap in a couple months.
Yeah, it will.
This has been the Morning Sports Desk on Wednesday, October 25th.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WDCNaradio.com.